Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Decentralized Chain. It's Firoz bringing you the latest news, reviews, and blockchain tech. So today we are going to be looking at seal.network. And Seal is basically a dApp which is focused on providing product trust for your everyday consumer. And so what we mean by that specifically is that Seal is going to be using a secure NFC embedded chip, which is going to be synchronized with blockchain technology, and this will really allow product authenticity and add additional value and information about the product and its product history. Now, the verification of the authenticity will be instantaneous with a simple tap or scan with a smart device. So this could be either your Android or your iPhone. And more importantly, which I quite like overall, is that the company itself, although being a Dutch company, the actual manufacturer, NXP, for the semiconductors is also based in Netherlands. So for me, this is already appealing in terms of that they have the technology aspect knuckled down with a locally sourced NFC provider, as well as the blockchain technology aspect, which is what they're combining this with. So let's try and understand a little bit more in terms of how this actually works. Now, I always love a good diagram, and there are a number that we're going to go through within the white paper. So starting with the overall architecture diagram. Now, within the architecture diagram, what we've got here is that it's broken down into 3 or 4 main sections. Now, if we start on the far left, what we can see here is you have the item plus the seal chip, which is basically combined. So that will be, let's say, a pair of trainers with the chip embedded within the trainer somewhere, which will then provide that level of product information and product trust. You then use the actual app to scan that, and that will then interface with the seal backend in order to start validating that product. Now, as part of that, what you can see is that they've created a seal API. Now, this is what's going to be used basically to interface with the seal network. And this is going to be the gateway to the underlying microservices. Now, what I really like about this, because it's an API, it's also going to allow other API consumers to be able to actually use this API within their own home products. So, for example, if you're buying a pair of trainers and you want to check the authenticity, in all honesty, if you don't really know about Seal, you're not really going to know to go ahead and download the app and then go and scan the actual trainer. What you're more likely to do in this day and age is if you have a Nike app on your phone and they have a product scanner built into it, then when you take your phone from the Nike app closer to the actual trainer, that will then provide the check using the Seal backend, but it will originate from the Nike app, because that's what's really going to happen in reality. Certainly in my line of work, and I do a lot of work around digital transformation, I see a lot of this within standard consumer behavior. So I would most probably use it from that perspective. Now, as we then move on past the API layer, we go on to what we have, the microservices. Now, this architecture basically is just more of a flexible and efficient approach to building and operating software. See, the idea being is that the microservice, what it's going to do here is going to split large applications into smaller components which are independent of each other. And so that way each microservice does one thing and it does it really well with high throughput. And at the same time, this basically allows them to split huge amounts of work, which goes into building, deploying, and updating the seal network into smaller and more manageable isolated components. So once again, what we're seeing here is a throughput of speed happening. And then the last element within the overall architecture is the blockchain on the far right. And this is basically where we're going to be storing all of our transactions regarding the given product, basically looking at information references for the product, photo references, brand information, history about the ownership, supply chain information. So you have all of those elements within there overall. So now that we've had a look at the architecture, let's have a look at the technical diagram, which kind of outlines the process in terms of how it happens and what the actual feedback mechanisms are to validate it all. So in step 1, what we can see is that the brand manufactures the actual product along with the NFC chip embedded within it. That then is registered at step 2 on the seal network, which basically only the brands will be able to do. Then after that, you will then have the seal app. So when a consumer is going to purchase a product, they will scan the app over the actual product, and that will then connect with the seal network, which is the architecture we were looking at before, and that will then follow through, communicate with the blockchain, but also at the same time, every single time a tap occurs, there's an update to the blockchain, so they know that an interaction has happened at that point. And then once the actual information is processed, it will then be sent back to the app. Now, the last diagram that I just want to go through so you can have a holistic view of how this solution is going to work is really the token diagram. And here there's a number of different key components that we're going through, but specifically you must be thinking, well, what is the actual token value within the overall ecosystem? Well, actually the way it works is that the seal token is going to be used in order to provide that activity between products, but also what we can see is that it's going to be used to be paying for services, which is the utility, and it's also going to be used to purchase products, which will then provide the medium of exchange and to interact with dApps as well. Now, the other element to bear in mind here also is that there is also a fee that is occurred, so we also have a revenue stream coming in to the actual network. And the way this works is that the seal network will charge a fee to the brands in order to use the service. And from that fee, what will also happen is they will burn a portion of those tokens as well. So therefore reducing supply and increasing the utility value of the token as well. So that way token holders, in addition to providing infrastructure such as nodes or masternodes, will also be able to see an appreciation in value as the supply gets diminished over time. Right, now let's have a look at the actual team who are going to be delivering this solution. As we look at the team, the actual founding members who are brothers, Joris and Bart. So between them, they have the business development experience as well as technical experience. So that's really good to see. They've also been founders of previous companies. So certainly from a leadership perspective and growing a company, I suspect they should be covered. As we then further scroll down and look at the sort of team beneath that, we have a number of blockchain specialists with a couple of years of experience between them. And we've also got a very heavy marketing presence as well. And this is really key because ultimately they are going to be going after the brands and they're going to need that marketing specialism in place in order to be able to have that conversation and get those brands to adopt that technology. Now, as we move further down, we also have the advisors, and there are a number of advisors here. What I am certainly seeing is advisors within the brand space. I'm seeing advisors within the semiconductor space and a very strong link to NXP, which is the semiconductor technology that they're going to be using. So this is really good overall. So they've got a good spread of advisors across all areas. Now, one thing that I do like also is if you scroll down further on their webpage, they have a number of openings. So clearly they're looking to grow their overall blockchain experience because they're looking to bring on a couple more blockchain engineers. But more importantly, they're also looking at content managers within Japan, brand heavy countries. What I also like is that they're looking to build out the UX element, the HR element. So they've got a number of roles where you can see that they're really looking to build and spin out this organization and bring that knowledge and that technical expertise in. So not something that I see quite often, certainly on websites around ICOs, but this did catch my eye and I did quite like that obviously they're focusing on the bigger picture, not just gathering the funding for the tokens and going off and doing their own thing. So that's good. So now let's have a look at the roadmap and exactly when this product is actually going to be delivered. So looking at the roadmap, they've actually got two. They've got one which is a technology focused roadmap and the latter which is a corporate focused roadmap. So if we have a look at the technology first, what we can see here is we've got the seal app, so the basic apps created with the NFC scanning capabilities. We've got the back-end infrastructure in terms of brands being allowed to configure their production lines. And then we've got Q1 where they've got estimated for the crowd sale to begin when really that's happening in Q2 later on this month. And then we've also got product deployment in Q3. So that's when they're expecting the mainnet. So really the big takeaway from here is that the mainnet is due at some point in Q3. So certainly there is at least a 3-month wait to get there. Brand timelines, what we have here is really them growing out their partnership over Q1 and Q2 and also growing out the actual team prior to the actual mainnet launch. So it's quite always good to see how they're focusing on the business side. So this is really growing out the business outfit to be able to adopt and take on the additional businesses that will eventually and hopefully come through their door. So I quite like the look of that. So in terms of the token sale, they have 1.2 billion tokens in total, and of which 41% is basically being reserved for the token sale. So that will be split between private investors, pre-sale and main sale. And then they've got 13, which is reserved for team and advisors, and they're vested for a 3-year period with release every 6 months. And then as we then move on, we have 7% for influencers. So the idea behind there is for lobbying, for influencing, and other PR related costs. And once again, those are vested for a 3-year period with a release every 6 months. The next amount was 22%, which is reserved for future operations. And so these will be used for strategic relationships, business acquisitions, institutional investors, and these will be locked over a 4-year period, vested every year. And then the last amount is going to be reserved for R&D. And so this will be held by the SEAL team. And once again, these will be used for R&D such as custom chip development, integration, deployment of proprietary blockchain, and then looking at decentralized app functionality. Now, this will be vested for a 4-year period with vesting release every year. So overall, I certainly like the token metrics. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more in terms of the token sale, maybe up to 50%, but the actual split's okay, and that's fine. And equally, the amount that's not being sold, it's all locked into at least 3 or 4 year vesting periods with either 6 or 1 yearly releases. So certainly isn't a money grab, and they're slowly trickling in the funds as and when they need them, as and when the actual ICO itself grows and becomes more profitable and successful. Now, in terms of what that means for monetary values, well, they're looking to raise around $34 million, which does seem a bit on the high side compared to certainly other ICOs that I've been reviewing recently. And that pretty much puts the token value at roughly about 8 cents a token. Now, the pre-sale is due to start in about 11 days, and there are bonus amounts associated with it. So any purchases of around 1 Ethereum will get you a 10% bonus. If you then purchase around 60 Ethereum, you will get a 15% bonus. And if you purchase around 300 Ethereum, you will get a 20% bonus. One thing that I don't like about this bonus structure, though, is that I believe there is no lockup. Now, I did ask in the Telegram group, and I've seen a few responses. Nothing official from the admin, but certainly a few individuals within the Telegram group have said that the bonuses do not have a lockup. So there is a risk that people may be looking to a portion of their tokens in order to make back certain investments. So that's just something key that you might need to look out for. Now, let's move on to the hype and see exactly how much awareness there is of this project. Now, according to their website, they have presence on Bitcoin Talk, they have Reddit presence, they also have a Twitter presence, a Facebook page. It says Medium, but I'm not finding the page here. They've also got a YouTube presence in terms of demos and videos and various conversations that have happened in the past. They also have an Instagram presence as well. And they have a presence on Telegram, which is around 14,000 users. So certainly there is a lot of awareness of the actual platform out there. So should be some good hype being generated around it. Now, moving on to my final thoughts. I've given the project a 3 overall, and that's purely because there's quite a few players already within this space around product identity, around product authenticity. And if we kind of have a look at a couple of them, we've got Vechain. So they have a very similar basic concept, but a completely different business model. And I think both of them can still exist in the same place. I suppose one of the main differences here is that Vechain are using RFID currently as their main technology, and they're more focused on supply chain. But also one other thing to bear in mind, and the reason kind of why I'm showing this on CoinMarketCap, is also looking at the market cap. So Vechain currently is at 1.3 billion. And so this is really an idea of where this particular ICO could go if it is successful, if it can lock in the partnerships. Because if they're coming out at 34 million as a valuation, then there's significant room to grow and ultimately multiply your investment. The other one to look at then is also Wabi. So if we kind of go and have a look at Wabi, it's a very similar concept to Seal once again. It's quite simple. It uses RFIDs with antennas, so different from the NFC technology that's used, but it's more focused on milk and powder and other food and wine related products to start off with. So once again, same but different and on a slightly different focus. The next one to then sort of look at we have in this space is also Origin Trail. Now, I don't really see these guys as direct competitors, and in terms of what their overall product is, it's kind of really looking at the life cycle of where their focus is more on tracking from the origin to the consumer, which is slightly different overall. And then the next one is Modum. So Modum, once again, it's more of a platform where you can interact with IoT devices such as NFC and RFID chips. But once again, they are still more focused on the supply chain and tracking goods from origin to point of sale. So really, I see these guys as being more direct competitors to Origin Trail. And then the last one we've got is Ambrosius. And so once again, they're focused on food and medicine. So slightly different from the actual brand and consumer side. So whilst this space is crowded, this particular ICO is really focusing, or Seal is really focusing on the brands and everyday consumer aspect. So everything that you'll be doing on a day-to-day basis with brands that you interact with. In terms of prototype, I've given it a 5. So if you kind of have a look on their YouTube page, they actually have a product demo where they're going along and they're scanning a particular product using their RFID chip and therefore relaying it back into their overall network. So this is quite good. I really like the look of that they also have a demo and a prototype out there that they're kind of showing. So that kind of just shows that they've got promise and they're heading in the right direction. Now, if we then move on and have a look at the team, I've given the team a 3. Overall, to me, they're an average team. They certainly have the breadth they need in order to be able to deliver. I think they just need a few more key blockchain specialists within their team as well. And obviously, they are still recruiting to grow that team out. So I suspect if they get all those bases covered, I don't see why this team shouldn't be a killer team going forward. In terms of advisors, once again, I've given them average. I haven't seen any advisors that really stand out to me, but they do have a number of advisors covering a number of different areas around brand and negotiation, so that should certainly help them lock in the partners. In terms of token metrics, I've given it a 3, purely because I'm not aware. I don't really like the fact that the bonuses aren't locked up, because that really does help with the sort of price fluctuation when it hits exchanges. Also, I'm not quite clear in terms of what the bonus entitlements are for those investing in the private round and whether those are locked up. What I did like about them, though, overall, is that, a majority of the tokens certainly are locked up, up to 4 years with vesting periods around every 6 to 1 year. So that's good as well. Hype and awareness, I've given that a 3 overall. They've certainly got presence on a number of different channels. Their Telegram is over 14,000 users, so there's certainly a lot of hype building up and awareness building up to the ICO event. Anyway, guys, this is my review on Seal Network, so I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please subscribe and share to the channel. If you didn't like it, please let me know in the comments what I could have done to improve the content, and I'll make sure I include that in the next round. Thanks, guys. See you soon.